Yo, what's going on? What's going on? All right. How y'all feeling today? Of course, before we begin, I'd like you to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button also. With today's content, I'm your host, A6, and what we'll be talking about today is Donald Trump basically came out and said that he has a plan that includes $500 billion geared towards black communities specifically. And he also wants to label Antifa as a terrorist organization. And he wants to label the Klan, Ku Klux Klan, as a terrorist organization also. Now, I've been looking on my social media, and clearly, let's be 100% real here, it's clearly pandering. He's clearly pandering towards black people. Trying to get us to basically get on the get off the Democratic train and get on the Republican train. So with that said, if you're familiar with the agenda black people have been boosting all over Twitter, the hashtag is Tangibles 2020. Haven't been on Twitter in a while. Tangibles 2020, Foundational Black Americans, basically FBA, different tags like that. And what that basically is, Tangibles is basically like the black people are holding the vote hostage, which started there on Twitter first before Puff Daddy and all these other motherfuckers try to get involved with it who don't give a shit about none of that. But so basically it was, we're holding the vote hostage and until we actually get some form of reparations for foundational black Americans or American descendants of slaves, pretty much in a nutshell. So it appears that this has been taken as tangibles by some of the people who look into it. And I'm asking, I pose the question, what do we have to say about that as black people? Like, what is the conversation that we're having right now? Because we've been asking for preferably the cash payouts in forms of reparations. Trying to adjust this camera. Cash payouts in forms of reparations, just like the Japanese got, just like the Italians got from the federal government, that we can use to benefit our area specifically, or, basically benefit ourselves to close the wealth gap. And I was pretty much talking to people, and from what I'm seeing, people are saying they're interested. I got a few people that are saying, we shouldn't be trusting the Republicans whatsoever. But the narrative is not Republican or Democrat. The narrative is whoever comes forth to say what tangibles we will get. If it's approvable by us, then we will back that candidate. Doesn't matter what party they're part of. So the fact that, he's came out and said that, I'm proposing the question on Facebook and to you guys. How do you feel about that specifically? This mostly for foundational black Americans as this question applies, because it's pretty much being geared toward us. So how do you guys feel about that? Like, do you think that this is adequate? And when he says $500 billion, this can be anything. It's not necessarily cash payments, and probably won't be unless it's specified of that. So that's something we need to take into consideration. And also, how do we feel about the money may be put in things like schools, it may be put in housing development. But we also have to understand too, man, a lot of times if this money comes from the federal government, it has to go to your state. It can't go to you, it can go to you individually. That's the trick bag right there, because it 100% most certainly can go to you individually. And they showed that they can do that with these not reparations, but with these, pretty much they were reparations, the cash payouts for the government for COVID. That's what it was. It was basically an economic boost. That shit is reparations technically, because they closed everything down, so they were giving people money back for everything being shut down. So yeah, hell yeah. So that was reparations for the basically the United States. But what they're talking about is individual cash payments for descendants of slaves, American descendants of slaves basically, and for foundational black Americans. So can it be done? Yes, it damn sure can be done. It can be done 100%. The same way they can always find out what race you are in any of these applications or anything like that, or any, if you were Japanese American back in the day, and they made payments to those people who were put in those I would say internment camps mostly, or whatever it's called, those camps that they were put back in, and they got reparations later on for it. I would say, yeah, there's a way they can find out, man, honestly. But do I think that that plan Donald Trump has rolled out is beneficial? I don't know, because for instance, I would say, again, with the cash payouts would be the best way to go if we're going to go about the reparations. But as far as, just putting the money towards the state and having the state divvy the money out. That's not working. It hasn't worked ever, and it's still not working. Elijah Cummings, he died not too long ago. But, he was giving money to Baltimore specifically, and that money has been squandered. Like, let's be 100% real. We talked about this in my older videos. We talked about it in the comment sections. The money has been squandered. It's been squandered, man. We got all this money from the federal government. I think it was like $500 million, if I'm not mistaken. And they closed, I don't know how many schools in the city, which is completely fucked up. They've closed recreational centers over time. None of them, well, I think a few of them got reopened, but it was basically like, hey, let's give these guys a little piddle paddle so we can still keep the rest of the money and say we did something. The money's been squandered on that, right? We opened casinos here about 10 years ago now. I think it was 2010 these casinos opened. Might have been a little earlier than that, maybe 2008. But we opened I think 2 casinos in Baltimore, in the Baltimore area. Well, yeah, I guess you can count Arundel area as not Baltimore, but it's still close enough because people from Baltimore go there to spend money. But anyway, we opened these schools up, and the money's been squandered. Like, they said some of this money will go towards schools. I specifically remember voting for this. They said some of the money will go towards schools from the casino if the casino's put there. Naturally, anybody's not going to say no to funding schools because nobody's a scumbag. Unless people know how the game is played already with them squandering money. I didn't know that at the time. So I figured, hey, let's put the casino there and let's have some of this money go towards schools. That sounds like a win-win. The kids get to learn. People get to go waste their fucking money on gambling or whatever, or try to win some money or whatever, however that shit works. 'Cause I don't really gamble. So, they get to do all that shit, and then, hey, everybody's happy. Well, turns out casinos got put there. But guess what? Surprise, surprise. The money never made its way to the schools. So at that point, you got to ask yourself, well, who is the leadership that's responsible for this? A lot of people pointed the finger at the casinos. So we were basically grilling the casinos like, we need answers. We giving this money up for tax revenue. We're spending money with your casino, and schools are being closed. Maybe y'all ain't paying the money. So why haven't y'all been paying the money we've been spending with your casino towards the schools? So they go back and respond, and they say, hey, don't look at us. Here's all the receipts. We've been paying the government the money that we supposed to have been paying. You need to look at the government. Why is the money disappearing? Ask them that. Don't ask us, because here's the proof that we paid. So naturally, nobody wanted to answer that question. You start going to town hall meetings and you start asking these politicians who are supposed to be in charge of making sure everything's spread out evenly, where's the money? Oh, they want to bring up this, that, and the third. They changing the subject. It's a whole bunch of, it's the same song and dance. And honestly, I don't trust his leadership to divvy that money properly. So I personally would say, fuck that. I don't like it. Give us the money individually. If you're going to do anything for the black community, you need to pay individually, because it has been proven the state is not going to divvy that money out, And if it's not about making shit equal or not about any of that shit, then it shouldn't be about it then. Don't make it about it. Leave the whole subject alone and then risk it and see if you win without us. It's a risk, And Trump could very well win without black people. The Republican Party has never needed black people to vote to win. But I think right now he's a little worried because they've been fucking with these mail-in votes, the whole COVID thing. They got the polls and shit. A lot of people ain't trying to put that fucking mask on. It's just a lot of craziness, man. And then if you look at anything that's happened in the past, with a lot of those elections that's happened, the one what happened with Bush and Kerry, I believe it was, and when Kerry supposed to have won in Florida, but they turned out Bush had won, and a lot of the votes have been squandered away and shit. That's another thing they did that was corrupt as hell. One day they said Homeboy voted, and I think like an hour later they said that Bush had won. So it's like, what the hell is really going on with these votes? Yeah, it's a lot of corruption. It always has been corruption. And it's like, man, the whole process is a sham, really. Honestly, I believe the whole process is a goddamn sham. But it's the same song and dance we always been singing. So do I believe that this plan could be beneficial to black people? In theory, but will it? Probably not. Because, it's, like I said, it's always the same shit. There's always some other shit going on with it. But, that's just the way the game is played, I suppose. So, that's all things we need to take into consideration. What do you guys think? You know, do you think this is legit? Do you think it's on the up and up? You could say Trump lies, but honestly, what person in a political position doesn't lie? What person doesn't lie, or at least twist the truth? Nobody that I can think of does. So I mean, it is what it is, man. That's something that's been put on our plate. We need to consider. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Meanwhile, I will holler at you later. Peace out. One.